Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And unlike we discussed last week, well, there was really no big news out of this last week since we recorded. So
you know what's going to happen, Eric? As soon as we were done recording, the IARP is going to come down with its ruling on Arizona basketball. Something like that's going to happen.
No, we can't. It's got to wait till next week because I'm out of town. I'm out of town this weekend. So
it's going to happen for sure now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Then we can't react to it. We have a great show lined up for you before we get into buy or sell. Phil Steele, who is the maven of college football. I don't even know what adjective is right to describe him.
But I'm sure you'll spend 3 minutes describing him when we bring him on.
2.5. 2.5. Yeah, he's great. He knows everything about every team. I don't know. He's like an encyclopedia. And we had him on last year and loved it. Shane and I buy his publication every year. So he's going to come on and talk about Arizona as only he knows how. And we're going to talk to our buddy Chris Gronkowski, who we've promised to have on at the end of the program, about Ice Shaker, about conference realignment, and much more. But before we get to it, let's talk a little buy or sell, which is presented by the aforementioned Ice Shaker. You can go online to iceshaker.com and buy one of these beautiful things and use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, to get $5 off. Pretty simple, right?
And if they're good enough for the Shark Dog Scooby Wright, they're good enough for you.
The champ, Scooby Wright.
The champ.
All right, Shane, before we get into this buy or sell, the rumor mill is stirring up. And so this is kind of what's going on as I understand it. Shane and I don't know anything official. Let's just get that out of the way. So this is all just discussion. But the Pac-12 has as an exclusive rights time frame until August 4th with ESPN to negotiate a longer or a new TV deal, the Pac-10, I should say. Mm-hmm. That could be expansion involved or it might not. So rumor is, as of now, the ESPN deal is low, and they have only offered to up it, if these rumors are correct, if the Pac-12 signs a grant of rights for 12 years, which means no team can go anywhere without getting sued like crazy. They'll give the Pac-12 more money. So that's not happening, right? So the number, Shane, that I've heard, whether it's true or not, is in the low 20s.
24. Was it 24 and a half is what I said?
24 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we've also heard that the Big Ten is, sniffing around Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and now Cal. And I think Cal is part of this because the California Board of Regents is mad that UCLA got swiped without Cal. So the Big Ten could just appease them and not have to deal with that by taking Cal. So that's where we stand now.
Okay. Yeah, I think right now we're getting into really the dog days of summer where all we have is this conjecture. I mean, I'm not saying all of it's false, but I think that a lot of these things are going to take a lot longer than just a few weeks to
I agree.
And I think that what was the last deal that what was the last TV deal they got in Pac-12? Was it $33 million?
Something like that. But
yeah, I mean, 20 to 24 and a half. Yeah.
But Shane, you lost your two biggest entities.
I know. That's a heck of especially, I mean, you consider inflation, which that makes a difference. That's a big pay cut. So I don't think they're going to be happy with that.
Okay. So number one, we're going to start with this one. Buy or sell.
Yep.
Assuming that 24 and a half number is legit. If you were Arizona and they said, take it or leave it, what are you doing? Buy, or are you taking it? Buy or sell? Let me say that.
I would sell it at first. I think that you have to at least consider other options. I don't think that it's take this or you get nothing. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's a negotiation, and both sides start out one way, one extreme or the other, and eventually somehow you meet in the middle. I know it's more complicated than that. There are a lot more moving parts, but no, I wouldn't take that. 24 and a half is I'm sorry, but it's just not, it's not worth it.
Okay. Number two, it would make sense for Arizona to take an unequal revenue split in order to keep the current Pac-10 intact, meaning that Oregon and Washington want more money than everybody else to stay happy. If you were Arizona, would you agree to that? Or are you getting out?
Depends on the money. If you're making more than you were in the previous TV deal, then maybe, I think you'd be okay. Say these guys are making a little more as long as we're making a little more, or they're making a lot more if we're making a little more. I think something like that would be fine. I don't think that would be their first choice. I think they'll argue against it tooth and nail, but I think privately they would say, okay, look, if we get the dollar amount that we were looking for, who cares if the other schools are making more than we are? At least that's how I would look at it, and how they would probably come to look at it eventually if that was their only viable option.
Oh, I hate to say this, but I couldn't disagree with you more.
Well, say it. We agree way too often, Eric.
There you go. I'm selling the crap out of this one.
Okay.
So here's the thing. To me, Oregon and Washington are not worth more to the conference as a whole than Arizona. Arizona has arguably the best basketball team remaining. They have arguably the best women's basketball team remaining. They have the best one of the best softball teams remaining. Same with baseball. You know what? I know that Washington hasn't been that good in football. I mean, I guess they've had their moments where they made the college football playoff, and so did Oregon. But I'm sorry. No, I'm not taking a revenue
Eric,
split.
If all sports were equal in terms of revenue, Arizona would be in very good shape. Sure. In terms of overall fan attendance, they're one of the best in the country. But in football specifically, and football is the moneymaker, they're at the bottom of the Pac-12. They are in awful shape, and that's specifically because of their win-loss record the last several years. You have Kevin Sumlin to thank for a lot of that. Unfortunately, it is what it is. So. From a guy who is called the other programs lesser schools, I feel like you might know better, and I don't think they're lesser in terms of
lesser sports. Yes,
they're lesser sports. Excuse me. Thanks for correcting me on that. But and it's not lesser in terms of athletic ability, but in terms of revenue, you're right. It is even men's basketball. It's unfortunately the way it is. Football is what makes the world go round in college athletics, and Arizona is not in good shape there. They're just not.
As far as I'm concerned, other than the Southern Cal schools where I would have been okay with a little bit of a difference considering their locale and how important they are as far as a recruiting base, Arizona is not going to recruit in Oregon or Washington, as far as I'm concerned, very often. So you know what? I'm telling those schools, pound sand. I'll go elsewhere. I'll go somewhere. I'm not dealing with any unequal revenue split.
Well, so hypothetical, say, Oregon and Washington are looking at 45 million and Arizona's looking at 35. You would say no, just because those other schools are getting more?
Yeah. I'd say, see you later. I'm going to Big 12 and we'll get more.
But that just seems like you're kind of biting off your nose to spite your face, though. Because if you're getting the dollar amount you're looking for, again, who cares if other schools are getting a little bit more? If they're worth it, and let's find Oregon is a better football program than Arizona and generates more revenue.
All right, I hate to use a personal example of this, but I'm going to do it.
Do it.
I worked in a job, and I'm not going to give any more specifics on that, where I was doing the same job as other people in different states, but they got more money because they were hired later, or they seemingly had more experience, even though I was older, and I like a lot more, not just like a couple thousand. And we're talking like double, let's say. Okay. And at a principle, like that's garbage. And in this case, Arizona is as valuable, as far as I'm concerned, to the overall conference as Washington for sure. Oregon, maybe the Phil Knight money, it's a little bit of a differentiator, but you know what? No, at this point, this conference needs to stick together, and those schools, if they want to be selfish, good luck. Go to the Big Ten. Have fun. If I'm Arizona, I'm out. I'm not dealing with this. You got to stand on your principles and say, no, we are a good school. We're not going to deal with this garbage.
You stand on your principles until you fall on your own sword, Eric.
No, and you know what I did in that case, Shane? I went out politely, got another job, and moved on. As much as
that was an option for you. Will that be an option for Arizona?
You're damn right. It's going to be an option for Arizona.
I think you're a little too more. There's optimism, and then there's pie in the sky. Maybe Arizona will be in better shape in a year or two. They start winning some more football games, which they will. I mean, there's only one direction to go. But as of now, I don't look. I would not take 24.5. I would at least explore other options. I would negotiate. But if other schools are making a little more, I grit my teeth and deal with it. That's just my opinion.
Fair enough. Number 3, if you were Arizona and heard that the Big Ten still has plans to expand, as there have been rumors in the last couple of days, would that facilitate your exit strategy any quicker?
Possibly. And I think it's important to note, and our guy Corey Leff, aka John Wall Street, noted that even though we, the fans, were blindsided by this UCLA and USC news, the schools weren't. They knew this was in the works for a while. So I think the fact that they're sticking together, they have to this point, it's not a coincidence. I think that there probably almost definitely been discussions beforehand, and I'm sure there are ongoing discussions now. So I don't think anyone's going to be blindsided by anything. So I think, if these 10 schools are as of now, are as locked in together as John Canzano told us they were, I think there's going to be those open conversations. And if you see a couple schools saying, you know what, I think maybe we're going to head this direction, then you could see the other dominoes fall. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Fair enough. I'm going to buy, of course. I mean, anything that involves leaving this lame duck conference. As far as I'm concerned, I'm out.
So you're saying the Pac-12 should be pack your bags.
It should be pack your bags. And yes, thank you.
I just wanted an excuse to use that.
Yes, thank you. Outstanding.
Okay.
Number 4 on the surface, Shane, Arizona is a better fit for the Big 12 than the remaining Pac-10 culturally. Buy or sell?
How do you define culturally, Eric?
I
can define it a number of ways. Like, for example, I've lived in Arizona most of my life. I sound like someone who lives in Oregon or Washington or Northern California more than I sound like someone who lives in Texas. Is that a cultural thing?
Which set of schools does Arizona relate to more? How about that? Is it the remaining Pac-10 schools, sans Southern California, or is it the Heartland schools?
Recruiting wise, I think more the remaining Pac-10 schools, but Arizona's recruited successfully in the past in Texas, and the Mike Stoops era, they did that. So there's some ties there. So yeah, it's an interesting question, Eric. I'm really not sure how to, and I knew you were going to ask me this, but I'm still not sure how to answer it. Culturally, I just think that there's so many different definitions, and that's for someone probably above my pay grade, but Arizona and geographically is an interesting spot because unlike the rest of the Pac-10, Pac-12, they're not in a coastal state.
Right.
They're a landlocked state in the Southwest, but they're also not the South, like as we would call the deep South, or, I guess Texas isn't the deep South, but, however you want to define that. So culturally, there's a lot, it's a bigger question. I think that culturally they could be just as good a fit in the Big 12 as they are in the Pac-12, put it that way, but it would be kind of a psychological change.
I agree with that. Number 5, Shane, Arizona is fine to move conferences without ASU. Buy or sell?
Fine, as in they'll survive. Yes, I'd buy that, but I hope like heck it doesn't happen. They've been tied together since the border conference, and they went to the WAC together, and then the Pac, they made turned the Pac-8 into the Pac-10 together. So I hope that they stick together just for the rivalry sake. I know some rivals have been split up, but 2 schools in the same state is a little bit different. Now, I mean, you could still make the rivalry work, football wise. And Georgia Tech are 2 different conferences, and they have
Clemson, South Carolina, Miami, Florida State.
So certainly I would hope that they would still play each other every year. But then again, do you want to use a non-conference game? If if you still have 9 conference games, would you want one of the 3 every year to be against your rival?
You wouldn't have 9. You'd be 8 and assuming it was 8.
Utah BYU is another, by the way.
Yep. Colorado State.
Sure.
I mean, you can go down and find other examples.
It's just decades, over half a century over half a century of history right there. It would be a change that I would not want to see, put it that way.
I actually, Shane, and maybe I'm buying into some of the rumors that I've read, I wouldn't be surprised if they split and ASU went one way and Arizona went another.
Gosh, you know what? I just can't imagine it, Eric, but I don't know if it's because it's just hard to wrap my head around or because it just isn't realistic. I'm honestly not sure. I think it's an interesting question. We ought to have more. I'll tell you what, we've had some great people on, some experts on to talk about this, and we'll have some more, but it's just not one that I am able to wrap my head around because for generations, these 2 schools have been, their timelines have been woven together, so it's just hard for me to fathom, but the more you think about it, maybe. I just hope it doesn't happen.
All right, here's our bonus question, Shane.
So just
these
one?
Dates, just one here.
Okay.
Bonus question. So October 28th, 2000, remember that date, and then remember the date November 7th, 2009, okay? What do those dates, what significance do those dates have?
November 7th, 2009. Let's see.
So I'll tell you, Arizona played Washington State at home and won 48-7. And in 2000, on October 28th, Arizona played UCLA and lost 27-24.
And there's some sort of, there's a common denominator there.
There's a common denominator.
I'm supposed to think of this off the top of my head during the podcast.
Yes. Well, I'm going to spoil it for you.
Cool. Can you just give me a hint, maybe?
It's hard to give a hint.
All right, just go ahead. Go.
Arizona was ranked 24th on October 28th, 2000 before they lost to UCLA. Arizona was not ranked again until their game on November 7th, 2009.
Okay.
So the last time Arizona was ranked most recently was November 4th, 2017, when they lost 49-35 in the LA Coliseum. Buy or sell, it will be longer than 9 years until Arizona is ranked again. So it'll be at least until 2026.
That is a good question, Eric. That's one of my favorites. So 2026. It would have to be just 2026. Buy or sell, it'll be longer. Oh, I'll sell that. Okay. I think, look, we even talked about a scenario last week, and I want to reiterate, I don't think it's going to happen, but a scenario where they could, if everything goes right, they could start 4-1 this year, presumably be ranked in the top 25.
They're not going to be ranked. No,
they're not going to be, but it could. So if they keep putting together the recruiting classes that they have, I don't see any scenario where they won't be ranked at some point. So yeah, no, I don't think it'll be that long. And if I did think it'd be that long, I probably would just say the heck with this podcast, because that's just flat out depressing.
I mean, can you believe it took Arizona 9 years to get ranked again? I mean,
well, it was a decade without a bowl game. So I guess in hindsight, yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, it went 98 to 08 without a bowl game, but 2000 to 2009 without being ranked is almost harder in a way. Well, I don't know. I mean, both of them are, crazy, but nonetheless, November of 2017 was the last time Arizona was ranked. Obviously, I'm going to sell that. I think Arizona, just a hunch, is going to be ranked no later than 2024. They'll be in the top 25.
I'll buy that. I think that's a reasonable timeline.
So just kind of keep that in mind. I thought I'd throw that little curveball in there about
that was a good one. Well done.
Coming up next, let's talk to our buddy Phil Steele. Well, not necessarily our buddy, but we've had him on before. We're really excited to have him on again. He's one of the great college football minds out there, and really looking forward to speaking with him here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact: when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, everybody, when we were trained together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Shane, I'm really excited for the second straight year. We have one of, I guess, the people that I admire most when it comes to college football, to college sports, to anything related to what we talk about on this podcast. And that is Phil Steele. He publishes every year it's like the Bible of college football. It's amazing. I've been a fan for over a decade now. It's phenomenal. And Phil knows more about all 130 teams than probably you and I can ever imagine. So, Phil, great to have you on with Shane and I once again. I have to say, the magazine is amazing again this year. But on page 172, I'm a little disappointed because you mentioned that Arizona doesn't make your most improved list, which I know is a lot earlier in the magazine. We know they're going to improve from one winner, we assume. But why didn't they quite fit in that most improved category?
Well, it's a great question, and it helped you explain what my most improved list is. Now, to make the most improved list, you have to have a losing record last year. Arizona qualifies. Yeah, I have to think you're going to make a bowl game this year. It's all teams go from losing records to bowl games, and that's how I count that one at. I do think Arizona is one of the most improved teams in the country. I just have them an underdog this year in 8 of their games, which means 5, potentially 6, but it's only teams I think definitely are going to get to the 6 or more wins this year. So that's a great question, and it helps you explain the list. It helps me explain the list a little bit.
Yeah, Phil, like Eric said, thanks again for chatting with us. We appreciate it. We know you don't do a ton of these, and we appreciate you fitting us our little podcast in your schedule. So I want to start talking about the Arizona roster with Jayden de Laura. They added a lot of great talent in the offseason, both in high school commits and transfers, and Jayden's obviously at the top of the list. Tell us what you think about him and just the overall improvement that he would presumably be, because he's presumably going to be the starter this year compared to what Arizona had to deal with at quarterback last year.
Yeah, last year, I mean, how many quarterbacks started last year? It seemed to be 6, 7, 8, 9, it seemed like at times. I think when you look at it this year, Jayden is a guy that's very confident. He's got great leadership skills. He's a mature guy. He's very competitive. And, he's just a great competitor. He's also elusive, hard to bring down. And he's one of those guys that is going to learn how to take some snaps under center this year a little bit. And I think that's going to help him in his career. But I was impressed with the job that he did at Washington State. I think he will be an upgrade at the quarterback position, even though they had some talented guys there that just didn't get the production needed.
Yeah, and Arizona seems to have a ton of talent at the skill positions this season now, albeit a lot of young talent, including some true freshmen who could see some immediate playing time out of necessity. If you're an Arizona fan, who are you most excited about at the tailback and receiver positions entering the season?
Well, let's start with the running back position. Michael Wiley is a guy that is the veteran coming back, and while you can look at those couple of freshmen, the two true freshmen and Luke and Coleman, Wiley's the guy that I went with as the leading rusher this year. He's the top back heading into the fall. He had 6 touchdowns over the last 6 games last year, and he added 16 pounds of muscle since he's joined the team. He's 5'11", 212 coming in. So I think Wiley's going to step up and be that feature running back. Now, receiver-wise, there's 2 guys really like there. You start with Jacob Cowing of UTEP. I've been watching him at UTEP for the last couple of years, and he is definitely a dangerous threat every time he gets his hands on the ball. He averaged nearly 20 yards per catch last year. I had him a 4th-team All-American. He's a guy that can play inside or outside. He's got great hands with speed. And then, of course, the true freshman, McMillan. McMillan's a guy that looked as advertised. He was my number 5 rated wide receiver coming out of high school. He's 6'4", 180 pounds, and he's a guy that is just good. You have to get the ball in his hands. But I think that combination at wide receiver coming in, Cowing and McMillan, is really going to make Jaden DeLora look like a pretty good quarterback.
You know, one of Arizona's biggest long-term problems has been the offensive line, and they have some returning talent. They didn't add, if there's one area where maybe they didn't add as much talent as you might have thought they would in the offseason, maybe it was at that area. How would you grade that unit entering the season?
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. And I personally would like to see a little bit more depth on the offensive line. Arizona doesn't really have great depth. So, I mean, Jordan Morgan is a guy at left tackle. He's an NFL talent. I mean, he's got size, he's got length. He had an ankle injury early last year, but he's finally healthy, and I think he's really going to shine this season. But the rest of the unit, there are some question marks. I haven't plugged in a true freshman as a starter on the offensive line in Jonah there, and he is. I've got him starting at right guard. I think it's a work in progress. I'd like to see more depth, but definitely if I have any questions on the offense, it would be the offensive line.
Phil, on defense, when it comes to Arizona, you are not bullish at all. You have them as having the worst linebacker unit in the conference, which makes sense considering what we saw last year, and also below average in the defensive line and defensive backs. Tell us what kind of improvement you expect to see. Obviously, losing Don Brown to UMass didn't help. Johnny Nansen coming in as the new defensive coordinator, but do you expect to see this defense possibly overachieve, or should we not expect good things this year?
Well, they got better than last year. How's that?
Okay,
but,
I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't see him as one of the top in the league, but they don't have to be. I think the offense can be pretty explosive. But I think adding the transfer from UCLA up front, nose tackle Savea helps. The USC transfer at defensive end and Eccles, the Michigan transfer at linebacker and Solomon all help. Chris Roland Wallace is a guy who, you wouldn't expect him on this defense that they had last year. He's got an NFL future. He's got the size and the what you want at the cornerback position. So I think there's talent on the defensive side. They will be improved. I wouldn't put them into the elite category on defense, the average at best, but I think the offense will be potent.
So one thing I always say, Phil, Shane thinks I'm nuts, and most people do, is if I was a college coach, the first positions that I would recruit are a kicker and a punter. And usually Arizona has struggled in that regard because we know that, college special teams are questionable at best. Arizona has one of the better punters in the nation, Kyle Osendorp, and a kicker, Tyler Loop, who didn't miss a kick in part-time opportunity last year. Just tell us how important those guys can be to Arizona's success this season.
Yeah, I can tell you from talking to the coaches that when you don't have a kicker that puts it through the uprights, it's something that you are angry about the entire off season. And there's a couple of teams out there that probably would have had 3-4 more wins had their kicker put it through the uprights. I think having a guy like Tyler Loop there hit a perfect 12 of 12 field goals last year is really what you want, and it's gives a coach a lot of comfort. You get close to the red zone or into the red zone, you can come out of there with points. And with Ostendorp, I mean, you're looking at a guy that had a net of 40.2, and that's pretty good. The average was even better at 49.2. I think if the coverage units improve, he'll all of a sudden be in the Ray Guy short list at the end of the year. So I think those are two really good pieces to have. And you hit it right on the head. Special teams are a unit that not a lot of folks look at, but I'll use Duke as an example. Under David Cutcliffe, he would say he felt special teams could win him 2 to 3 games a year. And look, Duke made it to a bowl game 6 out of 7 years. Duke did. And I think it was mostly on the strength of the special teams, which really won them a lot of the close games. So that's a great piece to build on.
Phil, I know you had a chance to chat with Jedd Fisch in the offseason, along with almost every coach at the Division I level. But Jedd's proven he can recruit, or at least bring in coaches who can do so. And I think we're all amazed, if we're being honest, at the type of talent he's been able to bring into the program. The big question for him, I think, is can he coach? Can he be an effective coach at the head coaching level? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think you're looking at a guy that took over a program that was 0-5 the previous year, had a lot of talent leave, or the players that were there left. And I'm just amazed at the class he brought in. Wasn't it second in the Pac-12 this past year?
Yeah. Second, I think in both measures. Yeah, number 2.
Yeah, and top 25 nationally, which is crazy.
Crazy.
How is that even possible? Yeah. Can I ask you? I do a radio show every week in San Francisco with Tom Tolbert, who's a graduate from Arizona, and
right.
And we talk about the Wildcats all the time. And I would have bet big money, that he couldn't have pulled off a recruiting class like that. So just that right there tells you what this guy can achieve. And I think sometimes that first year is always going to be a learning year, and as it was, I thought Arizona played tough in some of the game. You go back to that USC game; it was a fairly close game. The Washington game, a close game last year, and even the tough loss in Northern Arizona. But the BYU game, I thought they played a very good BYU team tough. So I think Jedd Fisch will, with the talent he has on hand, show that he's a pretty good coach.
I don't want to give away too much because I want people to buy your magazine, obviously, but just give us an overall scouting report on the rest of the Pac-12 South, including our neighbors to the north, ASU. How do you see that division shaping up, and where, maybe best case scenario, where could Arizona finish, and if everything goes right for them?
Okay, that's a great question. I think there are 3 teams at the top of the Pac-12 South. Number 1 is Utah, a team I'm extremely high on this year. In fact, I've got them number 6 in the country. We saw what they could do in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. Whittingham's got them strong at the line of scrimmage. They got my number 6 rated offensive line, number 17 rated defensive line. Both the DBs and linebackers rank in my top 15. They've got Cam Rising at quarterback. They were 1-2 when Rising took over. They were a different team with him at QB. I think they've got a chance of running the table this year. USC is an interesting case, and I tell you a little bit about how I write the magazine each year. I do the magazine in a 3 write-through process. It takes me 7 months to do this thing. The first write-through process is what I call my postseason write-through. And naturally, I've watched every game. I've got 12 TVs in front of me during the football season. But then I read through every article that was written about each team. And I really do them one team at a time. So I'm completely in the flow of that team, every unit, top to bottom, ebbs and flows, and all the stuff that happened. And then I write it. I write, okay, what kind of shape was this unit in last year? What happened, and what kind of shape are they in next year? And I do that for each position on the team. Well, after I did that in the first write-through process for USC, they were a 4-8 team. They had a first-year head coach. They had 11 returning starters. I had a middle of the road in the Pac-12 South. Then the second write-through process, you had in the freshmen and you had in the transfers. They started moving up a little. And then the third write-through process is after I talked to the head coach. So I'm on the phone with Lincoln Riley, ironically, the day they signed Jordan Addison. And now all of a sudden his quarterback is Caleb Williams, my number 1 rated quarterback out of high school last year, who started at Oklahoma. His receiver, Mario Williams, was my number 2 rated receiver out of high school, started at Oklahoma. Blitnikoff winner, Jordan Addison, 1,000-yard rusher, Travis Dye. I had questions on the offensive line. He said he really liked the top-end experience they had and didn't expect to inherit as much talent as he did. Made me feel better about the offensive line. They bring in 12 guys, transfers on the defense, including Shane Lee, who started 13 games as a freshman. Now, all of a sudden, I had USC, my number 1 most improved team in the country, and I think they're capable of getting double-digit wins and contending with Utah. And then UCLA, I think this is Chip Kelly's best team yet. He's got DTR back at the quarterback spot. He's got Zach Charbonnet, a running back. The offensive line might be the best he's had since he's been there. And defensively, while only 2 starters are back, I like the Murphy twins that he brought in from North Texas. I think both are going to have an impact. And he hit the transfer portal hard. UCLA gets both Utah and USC at home, which gives them a chance. And then you get to the second half of the Pac-12 South, and you talked about best case scenario for Arizona. I would say it's 4th place, and I do give them a legitimate shot at getting there. Arizona State's a team that has talent. They won 8 games last year. They've got Emory Jones, quarterback spot, some good talent on the offensive line, but they also lost a lot. They only have 7 returning starters coming back. I think they're vulnerable. That at Arizona game could very well determine who gets 4th. I don't put Arizona State, as much as I did the last couple of years. I had Arizona State as a contender. I don't list them as a contender this year. I've got them in the bottom half. Arizona, who we've talked about in length, and then I've got Colorado 6th. I think Carl Durrell's still got a rebuilding project. I think he caught lightning in a bottle that first year in 2020, jumping out to a 4-0 start. But the overall talent of Colorado, I think when you look at them, they are just not up to the level. So I've got them coming in 6th.
Phil, my last question for you, and again, we really appreciate your time. It's actually a 2-part question, and one we could probably spend hours on. But in terms of conference realignment, there's speculation in Arizona and some might join the Big 12, maybe this partnership with the ACC. Number one, what do you think will ultimately happen? And number 2, what is Arizona's best case scenario in terms of conference realignment?
Boy, that's pretty good questions. I think the one certainty of college football that we've seen has changed. Go back to the first year of my magazine, 1995. I had the Southwest Conference in there, and the Southwest Conference disbanded, turned into the Big 12. Some teams went to the Big 12, some went to the SEC, and at that time, it was pretty huge because the Southwest Conference was a key part of college football, but college football survived. Nebraska went to the Big 10, it survived. And so I think we will see teams going to 2 to 3, probably super conferences, probably 3. But I personally, I don't know how exactly it's going to shake out. We hear something new every day. Arizona, the best conference to go to. Well, the best conference to go to, let's be honest, it's either the Big 10 or the SEC. Now, are they going to go to the Big 10 or the SEC? I don't think that's going to happen. So right now, I'm sort of liking the Big 12, and it's a big change for me. If you asked me about conference alignment last year, when Oklahoma and Texas were leaving the Big 12, I would have said, hey, the Big 12's on its way out. They can't possibly make it. They got the 8 weaker teams in there. And now all of a sudden you're looking at adding teams like Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and BYU, potentially some Pac-12 teams. We'll see what happens. I think the Big 12 might be the best place to go. But, as bad as I thought about the Big 12 last year, maybe next year we're talking about that way with the Pac-10 or Pac-12 or whatever it is, and it survived. We'll just have to see how it all shakes out.
Phil, I wish you could see me on camera here because I'm smirking because that's what I've been telling Shane.
Eric's
for a
been
while.
Pro Big 12 all the way.
Yeah, time to dump this Pac-10 conference or whatever it is, sans the Southern California schools. All right, 2 quick questions for you. First of all, from a national perspective in college football this year, it seems like it's Alabama, Ohio State, maybe Georgia, and then everybody else. Are there any other teams realistically that can contend with those big 3 to potentially win a national championship?
Yeah, and last year when I talked to the head coaches and going over the teams with them, the one common theme, 95% of the coaches out there, was, Phil, this is the deepest team we've ever had. We went 3 deep in the spring. I've never had a team with this much experience because of COVID. Everybody had everybody back. Sure. The only teams that didn't were the big boys. Ohio State didn't even play in the Big 10 title game. Clemson didn't even play in the ACC title game. Oklahoma didn't even play in the Big 12 title game. Alabama, they lost A&M, got outgained by Florida, needed a 2-point conversion stop at the end, barely got past LSU, and should have lost to Auburn. They needed a miracle comeback in 4 overtimes to beat Auburn, or they wouldn't have made the playoff last year. This year, I think it's a return to the power. So I do think Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia are the top 3. I think Clemson gets into the mix, and I do think we see the Powers return to the playoff. But if you're looking for 2 teams outside, I went in length about how I like Utah this year. I think Utah would surprise a lot of folks and be able to get there. Michigan is probably an upset away. They'd have to go into Columbus and win, but I think they'll be 11-0 when they travel to face Ohio State in Columbus. But they would need to pull an upset. Right now, they're a 2-touchdown dog right there. And then the other team might be a team like Pitt. And when I look at Pitt, they are a team that lost Pickett. They lose Addison, but that defensive line is the second best in college football. and I think that gives them a threat. And they play well on the ACC road. Last year they were 4-0 on the ACC road, won by 23 points per game. And they get Miami on the road in the season final, which might determine the division champ. And then Oklahoma as well. I've got Oklahoma favored in all 12 games this year. And, last year they lost their road games to Baylor, which had everybody back, and Oklahoma State, which had the entire defense back. Well, guess what? Baylor and Oklahoma State lost some stuff this year, and they've got to travel to Norman. Oklahoma's record in non-COVID years at home, 20-0 the last 3 years. I think getting Baylor and Oklahoma State at home is the key to them winning the Big 12 and potentially going undefeated. So you could see some surprises out there, but I do think it's a return to Powers.
How about that with Pitt? That is the ultimate sleeper.
Interesting.
So we appreciate that, Phil. My last question for you. So I bought the preseason package that you offered in May, which was get the magazine ordered, sent to your house, and you get a free trial subscription for a few months to philsteele.com. Where can people buy the magazine now? And then how can they get more access to your website?
Hey, I appreciate that. We had to actually print the magazine in 2 parts this year due to a paper shortage, which was confounding, but that happens nowadays, I guess. And we sent the first batch strictly to Barnes & Noble. So if you're out and about looking for it right now, go to Barnes & Noble. That's the best place to have it. All Barnes & Nobles have the magazine. Now, the second batch got printed, and it's starting to hit the other places. So maybe in about a week or a half a week, and probably some other bookstores. But right now, Barnes & Noble is your best place to go. Now, the website, philsteele.com, Phil Steele Plus, and I hope you use your Phil Steele Plus.
I do.
The free months you have. And during the season, it's invaluable. When you get to that first week of the first month of the season, we color code everything in red and green for each team. Stats are updated Sunday night. So Monday morning, you're looking at it. All the stats are updated, power ratings and much more. But also, at philsteele.com, you can order the hard copy of the magazine. You can also order the digital version. And when you check your digital version, you'll see that we update it all the way up through the start of the season. So if a player's out for the year, we'll have him circled. We've already noted that Bill Clark is no longer the coach at UAB. Unfortunately, he had to step down. We got the new head coach plugged in up there. Mahogany, the offensive lineman for BC, their only returning offensive lineman, out for the year with injury. He's circled in the magazine. We changed the write-up in there. So the digital version actually updates you all the way through the start of the season. All that's at Steele.com. But definitely check out. And next week, by the way, I'll have a video about the best way to use Phil Steele Plus, just so you get the most out of it, because there's a lot more up there than you probably think there is.
Phil, it's always an honor to have a chance to speak with you. Thank you so much for educating Shane and I, not only about Arizona, but the other teams as well. And we look forward to talking to you again down the road.
Hey, I always get to talk about the top 5 teams in the country, guys, and rarely do I get to go in depth on Arizona. So thanks for having me on. It was enjoyable talking Wildcat football today.
Phil, I guarantee you, every time we bring you on to talk about Arizona football, you'll get the opportunity to talk about a non-top 5 team.
Thanks, Phil. Really appreciate
That's great.
it.
Hey, a lot of fun talking football with you guys.
Shane, this isn't your typical final segment. We'll bring on our last guest shortly, but really cool to have Phil Steele on. He talked a lot. Just great intel. It's like an encyclopedia.
Unbelievable.
How much he knows about everything college football. And it's nice that he's optimistic on Arizona. Just your thoughts on what he said about realignment, Shane. Does that kind of change
you're just looking for a chance to brag because you think that it's Big 12 or bust, and it sounds like that Phil said, look, the best case scenario was SEC or Big 10, which not happening for Arizona, so Big 12 may make the most sense. So and maybe that's where we're headed, and that's fine. I kind of like the whole idea of the ACC partnership, and maybe try to work some Big 12 schools over, but
not happening. I think
well, not with that attitude.
No part of that. Right. I think the ACC wants no part of it. All right, let's bring on a guy who actually lives in Big 12 country, and is
great segue, Eric.
There
That's
you
fantastic.
go. How about that? He is not only a former Arizona Wildcat and NFL player, but he is also a sponsor of this program, and a very good one, Ice Shaker, if mine actually shows up. So Chris Gronkowski joining us. Chris, glad to have you on for the second time. Always appreciate it. First of all, just want to ask you, these rumors about Arizona to the Big 12. You live in Texas in Big 12 country. Would this be a good move for our school?
Man, yeah, I can't believe all this action going down. I was actually talking about it today. I would like it because maybe you'll come play some games out here and I could actually come see some, man. So I like the idea of it. personally, but yeah, man, it'll be a mix up for sure if the Pac-12 or Pac-10 is now gone, man. That's going to be weird.
I'm just calling it the Pac going forward.
It's dead, Shane. It's gone. Just it's DOA.
Maybe. Well, Chris, and like Eric said, we got the Ice Shakers. Our guy Scooby Wright has rocked his, and he's generated some business for you, which has been awesome. Got some updates to the company. I mean, things are going great, and I've heard that there's another Gronkowski who's officially on board now.
Yeah, man, he's been on board. He just hasn't been putting in the working hours because he was busy at another job. But
busy doing what?
Yeah, I don't know, man. He gets the whole summer off. He only has to work on Sundays, and all of a sudden, finally has some free time. So it's all good. But no, Rob invested into the company probably about 3 years ago. So he's always helped promote it. He just hasn't been able to do different events and day-to-day stuff like he is able to do now. So it's cool to have him part of it. He loves learning every day. And, once you leave football, you have to be challenged in some form. So hopefully I'm able to bring him some of that challenge that he needs to, just keep the mind right and keep yourself in a mode where, you're competing every day.
Yeah, I have a feeling none of the Gronkowski brothers are ever okay with being idle for more than a couple of minutes at a time. And of course, you have no choice with 4 kids, including a new baby girl, and congratulations. I remember going back to your appearance on Shark Tank, you and all the brothers were there. Were at that time, were you the only guy who was actually part of the company and they were just there to, support you, or were they, did you have other guys, other brothers invested as well?
It was just me. So I was the only one at the time. They came in just to help support me. I don't even know if they all actually knew what the show was about at first. I think Rob thought it was just for TV. He didn't realize hey, it's the real deal. Like, this money is real. The investment's real. They will, the Sharks will be a part of it going forward. So after he found that out, he's like, man, this show's legit. I was like, yeah, I know. And then he ended up buying in. A couple of years later, he actually bought A-Rod out of the company.
Is that right? I didn't, because I remember Mark and Alex Rodriguez are the ones who gave you the deal, at least on TV. I know they don't always go through, but this one did. And then Rob ended up buying A-Rod out then.
Yeah, a couple of years later, Rob bought him out. They did a pretty cool swap. Rob had to do some Barstool stuff for him. He ended up going into another investment with A-Rod. So it was a pretty cool deal. But that was when Rob first retired. He wanted to get into the business world. He wanted to get into the business with the family, and thought he was going to be putting some more work and time into Ice Shaker. But then he unretired a couple months later. So we've been waiting for the new retirement to really bring him in and show him the ropes.
Are you buying the new retirement?
I am. Yeah. I mean, I was surprised when he went back. That was kind of like a bonus, but I say, man, you can't retire 4 times because, he did the whole retirement when they got traded to the Lions. So that was number 1. Then he did the second retirement. Now this is the 3rd. So, I mean, you can't do 4, right? That's not even allowed.
No, you got to be done.
I don't blame him for the Lions thing either. I don't think anyone.
Yeah, nobody want to go play there. All right. So you've done, a great job with this company. What's kind of next on your agenda? I mean, obviously you have a successful thing going with all these. By the way, as we touted earlier in the show, you can go and buy one of these online, iceshaker.com, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and you can get $5 off. So just want to point that out. What's next? What else are you adding to this empire?
Yeah, man. So I think last time we talked, I don't think we had the jug. So we had the full gallon, half gallon jug actually requested by Rob. I was rocking one earlier when I came on, but half gallon right here.
We're gonna get one of those, right?
Yeah, they sold out. We released. There's more coming, but sold out within a month. Rob requested it. He was in Tampa. He's training with Brady, and he's like, "Bro, I need a bigger bottle, man. I'm going through like 3 of these, just when we're out here practicing." And brought him in, and he started using them, and they sold out like within the first month. So we'll bring him back in, but have the jug. We got some cool stuff coming. We have a new sports bottle, some more of just a built-in Charlotte. I got one here. So
nice.
A lot of people go to the gym and they mix protein shakes, but a lot of people just use the bottle for water. So we were getting a lot of requests just for more of a basic water bottle. So we'll launch this in 20 different colors next month. And then another cool thing we have coming, we actually have a U.S. Army partnership. So this is actually the digital camo of the U.S. Army. It's going to be a licensed product, and proceeds go back to their charity. So super pumped for that. We've always actually, since Fort Huachuca, we've You know, we've done so much with military. We aligned so well with them, but that was my first time I actually engaged and been on an Army base. So it was cool to be there. And now it's awesome just to be able to support our troops.
You know, Chris, I've seen yourself and several other former athletes, especially from the NFL, who have gone on Shark Tank specifically and started their own business. A lot of former athletes go in that arena. Some I think are able to use their name better than others, but it takes a lot of discipline. What for athletes who are maybe looking to go into business for themselves when they're done with their professional career, what's the biggest piece of advice you could give them?
Man, I tell them, treat it like a team, like the same as the locker room. And that's something I actually struggled with. You know, you're so competitive when you leave, you think you can do everything yourself. I thought I could take on the world myself. I was probably working 100-hour weeks easily. I was working every single day. And it finally came to a point where you max out. You can't scale anymore. You can only do so much in a day. And you can multiply your time by bringing in a team, you know, and doing it the right way and structuring it exactly like an NFL team. You know, there should be a head coach, should be assistant coaches, there should be players, and there shouldn't be anyone doing all three of them. You know, I was doing all three. I was doing everything. And once you realize that, you're going to grow and you're going to build something amazing. You're going to win championships as a team. And you should take that same lesson that you learned in the locker room and that same structure and format and put it into the business world, and you'll be successful.
You know, a last question, and I'll let you go. I know you got 4 kids running around. We talked about, Eric, I've talked about, other than ASU, USC and UCLA are Arizona's most natural, biggest rivals, especially in men's basketball. Arizona, UCLA is huge. But from a football perspective, when you were there, who were Arizona's biggest rivals after Arizona State? Was it UCLA and USC, in your opinion?
Oregon. I would say Oregon.
Oh, yeah, that big game in 2009, Chris, that you played where the fans rushed the field is on ABC College Game Day,
Yeah, so I would say Oregon. And then, USC for sure as well was always a big one. They were kind of like the team to beat. So we beat them at their stadium, which was huge. That was cool. But Arizona State though was always, man, you bring the alumni in and, they just talk so much trash and they hype you up. And, it's that one game that no matter how good or bad the season's going, you got to win it no matter what.
Yeah, I remember that 2009 game. I was actually in the stands in the section where the game-winning field goal was kicked. And I remember it because it looked like that game was slipping away. And then Kyle Williams for ASU muffs the punt, and you guys get the W. How good did it feel to finally get a win on their home turf?
Oh man, I never lost to ASU, so like that's my claim to fame right there.
Yeah, you got to be one of the only guys in the last 20 years that was undefeated against ASU. Seriously, I mean, when you think about it, because you played 2 years. So I know we talked about this last time, but I have to ask you again. 2008, Arizona State, you had a big receiving game. Your record high receiving game was against them with a touchdown. I think you had 3 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. What do you remember about that game and that play? That
was Arizona State?
Yep.
I think you're talking about are you talking about the BYU game?
No, it says it's sorry, I was looking, it was Oregon. I'm sorry. It's Oregon in 2008. It was on November 15th. You had three catches, 84 yards. I wanted to ask you about that touchdown because I believe it was the second touchdown you scored in college. My bad on that.
Yeah, that game was awesome, man. What was really awesome about it was Rob had an unreal game too. And so all the scouts would watch that game because it was one of his best. But it was also one of my best games. So then I was getting a lot of looks because of it. So that game was unreal. I still remember it. Keola, swing pass at the end of the game. We could have went down and I think we were going to take the lead at that point and just slipped through his hands after we were getting crushed the whole game, came back and it's an epic game, man. I need to find that game film.
Was that the game where Oregon was up by 4 or 5 scores early and then they almost that's all coming back to me right now. I remember you guys all had a chance to win. That was in Eugene.
And then I believe it was the week after was ASU, I think. And then came
week after. I think the week after was Oregon State, and they lost the last second field goal there. And then there was my favorite rivalry territorial cup game ever was 2008 because it was like the monkey was off the Wildcats back after
31-10. Yep, there you go.
It was a great.
And then the BYU game.
Rob scored in the first half of that game, and then it was an onslaught in the second half. Then of course the BYU game where you have the 2 big catches on the same play from Willie. And get
Greatest
the touchdown.
So, all right, my last question after I bumbled that and can't read stats anymore, apparently. So you signed on. Ice Shaker was cool when we first kind of found out more about you guys. You signed a few Arizona athletes to do this, and a few of them now have transferred. So what happens next? Do you sign more, or what's kind of the process for that?
Yeah, it's tough, man, because it's happened to it happened so much now. It's insane. I mean, I think something's going to have to change at some point here because it's just getting so out of control already. And I don't even think it's even come close to the peak yet. So it's hard, man. And it's also hard to really get these guys to commit to, the deliverables and stuff like that. I mean, you're a college kid. We paid them an upfront signing bonus, and then, you're supposed to have a certain amount of posts throughout the year. I kind of realized it probably wasn't going to happen. It wasn't worth my time chasing it. So it's been tough. What we're trying to do is work with some of the collectives that are working with just these bigger platforms and sign multiple players at the same time is the goal, because, doing it one-off, collecting a W-9, most of these guys, they don't have a scanner. Like they don't have ways to print and send stuff back. So it's tough signing these players right now and doing it in an efficient manner for us. So we're really hoping that one of these platforms step up that connect the players to the businesses.
Well, Chris, we always appreciate having you on for the second time. Thank you for being a sponsor with us. So we love our ice shakers.
Yes,
Shane and I use them every week, and we know that a lot of our listeners have gone out, or a good chunk of them, at least, that have talked to Shane and I, have gone out and bought some. Everybody loves the product, so we appreciate it. And of course, I'm sure we'll have you on again during football season to talk about Arizona, and hopefully they're a lot better this year.
I think that they will be. They will be.
Only one direction to go, right?
That's it. It's going up now. I'm
Chris, you had a good. You made 2 bowl games when you were there in 2 years.
Oh man,
we don't know what a bowl game is like. Arizona hasn't made one since 2017, I don't think. So it's been a while.
That's why you got the good recruiting classes coming back, man. They want to be that class that brings them to a bowl game, like Rob and I did. So that's the lure of losing. Sometimes you get those players that are just hungry and want to make a point.
Well, we certainly hope that this team, at least in the next year or two, can find a way to get there. So, Chris, always good to talk to you. I want to thank Phil Steele as well for joining us. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. As always, bear down.